Are you enjoying the Mindset Playground? Well, visit my website at louannehunt.ca. That's louannehunt.ca. And find out about all of my guests, my upcoming guests, my past guests, and also sign up for my free Insiders Club. That's where you're going to get information sent to you through email about tips and tricks and all kinds of good stuff about living from the inside out. So I can't wait to see you there on the Mindset Playground. And don't forget to visit my website at louannehunt.ca. Hey everyone, welcome to the Mindset Playground, where you're going to get your daily dose of positivity. And I'm your host, LouAnne Hunt. And I am so excited that you've joined me here today on the playground because I have such an amazing lady who is going to come out and play with me on the playground because you know what? Right now, it's all about reinvention. It's all about turning your what now into right now, basically. And she is actually a perfect example of that. I can't wait for you to hear her story. So, welcome to the Mindset Playground, Francesca.
Oh my goodness, Luann, what an incredible introduction. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure and honor to sit here with you today and talk about reinvention. This is a great topic.
Well, this is really good. And when I found out about your reinvention, I'm so excited to talk to you about it because right now it's all the craze, clarity, and trying to figure out what you want to do in life because everything is kind of upside down right now, it seems, in the
Hmm.
world in general. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, you were actually a CPA, and let's
Yes,
talk about that.
I went to school for accounting. Got my accounting degree. Let's start with why, right? A lot of people wonder, like, how did you decide that that was your major? And I did my father's payroll at the early and ripe age. I don't remember if I was like 9 or 10. So my father had a business and he was a mason and he needed to pay his laborers once a week. And his accountant couldn't make it to our house every week. And my father said, "Well, you're gonna just teach my daughter. She'll do the checks." And it was really simple. And he's like, "All right, all you have to do is open this book up, how many dependents, and get these numbers, put them from here to there, subtract it, and you're done." And it was just this easy thing. The lesson there that I learned, Luann, was that accounting is the basis and foundation of all business, right? My father was a mason, nothing to do with accounting. And I needed and saw the importance of the numbers. And one more layer to that, my mother was a top Avon. Do you remember Avon? I don't know if
Oh,
you have experienced it. Top Avon representative, like in the nation. Well, and by the way, I should preface this by saying my parents immigrated from Italy, right? So broken English, but they had their booming businesses. And I assisted my mother with the inventory and ordering and writing out the slips and filling the bags. So I just understood it. So I took my first accounting class in my undergrad and I'm like, you know what? This is it. Because one thing we wonder about, Luann, and a lot of it is happening now, like you want to go into a profession that is going to support the debt, but also something that you can do. So knowing this, knowing that accounting's the basis, something that I understood, and that I would be an entrepreneur someday, like really nailed in my interest into becoming a CPA, ultimately going for the credential.
well, that's great. And, it's interesting because I was teaching business courses to
Mm.
first year students. And I have to be honest with you, I would always tell them this: make sure that you hire a good lawyer and a good accountant
Right. And
because
understand it. Yeah,
Yeah, because I love business and I love my business and but I have a great accountant. And thank goodness because I was never one. I mean, I had to take accounting, but I wasn't like you. I it wasn't as free flowing for me, we'll say.
yeah,
So, but that's okay. So
yeah,
now you became an accountant and
that's right.
you obviously had your own business, or did you work for?
Well, I worked in public accounting. I worked for one of the big international public accounting houses that there's the four largest in the world. I worked in that profession for over a decade, and then I went to a subsidiary of theirs and did business development. And then we spun off, we went public, and then I went into the CPA association world where I headed up the Education Foundation, which is continuing education for CPAs across the state. So, I'm a lifelong learner and understood and understand the importance of it. So I got to head up learning for CPAs in the state of Pennsylvania, which was for me super duper exciting. So I didn't launch off into my own entrepreneurship journey straight away. I got like a lot of business understanding before that.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then how long once you were, going into all of these different businesses, how long did you stay in that profession?
Yeah, I left corporate in 2017. Yeah, it was time. You know, it was just one of those clarify. It took a while for me to find the clarity and to know that I wasn't going to go back, that it was time to start my entrepreneurship journey at that point. Yeah.
Wow, that's tough, right? Because you had to work through all the noise, I'm sure.
Well, the noise is society, Luann. The noise is what everyone does just because they think they should do it. And which is why fear sets in when you're going for something, that's not just a straight salary, and then we can't use our creative forces. So it's really important to sit down with yourself and have this transformation and understanding that, you know, where do you go from here, right? Just like we were saying a few moments ago. So it was hard because I was struggling with what society expected as opposed to what I wanted. So that's the difference. Yeah.
Right. So how did you deal with that at that time?
Yeah, little by little. Little by little, and then I started to do so should we tell everybody my tagline? Like from 2017, I went from being a CPA to a stylist. Now, like helping people dress. Now, when people hear that, their heads are like, how on earth do you go from being this numbers person to this other person? I kind of already was that other person. And how that started, the connecting story, as I promised that I would share, is that in 2006, while I was still in corporate, I was having a conversation with a partner who I worked with a lot in the big firm, and he moved on to a smaller firm. And I asked him, so how are things at the smaller firm? How are things going for you? He said, oh gosh, Francesca, these millennials, they don't know how to dress. I'm like, what do you mean they don't know how to dress? Like, why is that a thing? It's like, well, you know, um, they're not dressed appropriately or professionally enough, and I don't take them out to clients with me. Right away, I knew what that meant because in that profession, you want exposure, and client facing is how you do the work, get the work, and move to the next level. It's about relationship building. It's not just about numbers. There's a lot of other things. It's a professional job. So I was like, well, you need to tell them that, they just don't know. We got to give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't know what they're doing. And he's like, well, I'm not telling them. That's kind of like sensitive HR stuff. I can't talk to the young ladies. Like, that's just, I don't know how to do that. And I'm like, well, I'll do it. So I created a presentation and presented to the firm. I created a college to corporate transition, explained to them that they're going to need a separate wardrobe and the importance of it. There's multiple generations in the workplace and things that we need to pay attention to. so that you can be properly promoted and do client-facing work. And then other accounting firms heard about it. And then I went on to the accounting firms and colleges and universities. So I did that in corporate. And then when I left in 2017, it was kind of natural for me to set into the stylist role for a couple of years. So that's the connecting story that a lot of people like, okay, how did you get from here to here? And it's because I was helping people all along, and then I decided to focus on it for a period of time.
Well, that's definitely a niche. And that's amazing because those are so important nowadays to have that marketing niche. And I would suspect that your contacts, how important your contacts were, right? Were
Yeah.
they everything at this point?
Everything. Oh, goodness. LinkedIn was my salvation after leaving corporate and like reconnecting with people, scheduling calls, virtual calls over and over and over again. And yeah, it's important to always build your network and connect with people because you want to help people, right? We're there to help others. And then also, um, perhaps they can provide a connection for you. But more importantly, is just to become more expansive in the work that you get to do. And to your point, this dress code situation, as I put in air quotes, it's a big deal now because, what happened in 2020 for a few years, dress codes went out the door. And I'm getting a lot of calls and requests now to help the younger generation understand, like, okay, and other people, like, okay, this is why we should dress professionally for work. It's a mindset, you know, it's something that you appreciate. They're paying you to do a job and you get to show up as your best professional self. So it's these little reminders that I get to do, and I'm doing it more frequently now, LouAnne, because a lot of people are returning back to the office and they're struggling with their dress codes and on and on and on it goes. So I help to communicate the message because this is not an easy conversation for a lot of people. They just don't know where to start. And I've been able to facilitate in those presentations.
Well, that's wonderful. And I know the fact that dress code is definitely important. I remember years ago a business person telling me that when you dress a certain way, it just influences everything that you do. So when I was working at my government job, working in the office, I always dressed, I would have to say probably like at least in a suit or like a jacket because I was
Yeah,
dealing with the public a lot and I wanted to be taken seriously. And even on this podcast, like, I'm not going to like sit here in my, jeans or in a t-shirt or because
right.
it's just not that kind of podcast, I guess. And so what can you say to that? Like, how can you address that when it comes to dressing for success?
Well, our clothes are a nonverbal expression of who we are. Just as, someone sitting there with their arms crossed and their heads down, that's a message that we're sending, right? And people interpret that message. And people interpret our clothing in much the same way. It's how we're feeling in that moment. And that's how we decide to dress. And for some people, it's like a tough love, like you're here doing a professional job and you want to come off professionally. And I specifically state of how important it is virtually, just as it is in person. So virtually, we want to emulate an in-person experience. So dress as if you were there face to face, because that's all this is. This is just helping us connect when we have quite a way of distance, if I'm not mistaken, between you and I, right? So we want to, but if I were to meet you in person, I would wear exactly what I'm wearing today. And that's the mindset of productivity and professionalism and showing up as your best self. So understanding that you're dressing for yourself too and sending that message, because you opened this up, of positivity. I'm ready for this podcast, right? I'm ready to deliver the message that LouAnne wants to deliver to her listener base.
Well, and that's perfect because you and I had just a very quick conversation, but it's like we get it, we know.
Yeah.
And It's perfect. It's perfect timing. And, I love the fact that you've already had this transition. And so let's go back and talk about this transition. So now you're a stylist. So,
Well, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to
no,
interrupt.
no,
Keep
it's
going.
okay. You
So
said,
I was a stylist for a short period of time. All throughout my professional career, LouAnne, I've been a speaker, I've been a teacher, I've been a presenter, and I stepped into that, like stepping up my speaker skills and attended a specific training to amplify my performance, if you will, in connection with the audience and understanding the importance of my message, how it's delivered, and the impact that I'm making. So in the past couple of years, I've really embraced that work. So I just don't speak on empowering your image. I also speak on other delivery things that I've created. I've put together other keynotes. Yeah.
well, tell us about them.
Yeah. So here's a good one that I got to deliver um, at a national conference. Well, it was at a state society of CPAs. Again, my connections. Again, we're talking about network, and it's about stress because we can't make stress go away, but we can manage it better, right? So because stress isn't the problem, LouAnne, it's our reaction to it. So how can we better non-react? How can we get ahead of it? So I have a framework that I share, the importance of, coming back in and just like spending time with yourself, for yourself, a minimum amount of time, 1% per day, so that you can show up professionally and you can be your best self. It's kind of like that oxygen mask, right? When you're on a plane, put it on yourself first before, we need to take care of ourselves. So the message is it's unique in that it's a cumulative effect. Like we need to do this over and over consistently. And when we do things in baby steps and we build on it, our reaction becomes a non-reaction or a better managed reaction of how we approach life. Because, and here's the major statistic that I share, 90% of all illnesses are caused by stress. That's like all of the illnesses, right? So that clearly states that we need to take better care of ourselves. And that's what my framework sits on. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And I'm
Thank
sure
you.
that's being met with huge amounts of welcomeness, we'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and because we have to ultimately take responsibility for ourselves, right? And our health, right? We're in the age of like instant gratification. And I think we can love and hate technology for that, right? Technology is beautiful because it's connected us today. And because of the alerts, constant, it stresses us out because we start to feel overwhelmed. And then we can go very easily into the deep end of burnout. And that takes a while to climb out of. So, how can we protect ourselves and shield ourselves to better manage our stress response? Because here's the thing, stressing out about stress stresses us out even more. It just makes us more stressed, right? So we're stressing out about stress. So how can we practice? What can we practice to rebalance? Right? We talk about what work-life balance. It's really a physical balance that we and mental connection, right? The mind-body connection. That's the balance I speak to. Yeah, work life is important, but the mind body connection will get you there.
Well, and that's so true. And the thing is, nowadays, that's all they talk about is how stress is part of, all of our illnesses. So
That's
now
right.
I have this thing in the back of my head. Oh my gosh, I can't get stressed because then I'm going to get sick. And
Yeah.
then, so it's important. So that's adding to the stress, the stress of
Stressing out
being
about
stressed.
stress stresses us out.
Yeah,
100.
it does. And then,
Yeah.
of course, talking about the electronics, well, You're right. It has, definitely connected us, but it's also disconnected the world. It's terrible. I had somebody on my podcast say that they're a realtor and a real estate agent, and the person who works for them is right outside the door and was texting her.
I have to laugh at that. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Like,
That's hilarious.
but, and that's, it comes up in almost every conversation that I have is, the
Yeah.
electronic world that we live in. And it is stressful. I mean,
So one of the sayings that I have, and I haven't coined this saying, but we need to disconnect to reconnect. And disconnecting to these pieces, these alerts, like, do you really need like a Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn? Do you need all the alerts? Because they want to send them to you. So that is a first line of defense, is managing who's contacting you, right? Putting it on silent and knowing that's okay. You're protecting your space, your peace, right? So disconnecting also means going for a walk. Steve Jobs, when he had a solution that he needed, what did he do? He went for a walk and he came back 15 minutes later with an answer. He didn't go walking with his phone. He went walking with just getting some fresh air so he could get some fresh thoughts. That's how it works. And I see a lot of people, LouAnne, because I try to walk after like lunch and dinner, depending on the weather. Today it's a rainy day where I am, so I'll just delay my walk. But I see people like holding their phones and looking down. How many times do you see that? People I'm like, look up. You're gonna walk right into me, right? Keep that phone,
yes.
right? Just leave it. And I think a superpower today is when you're aware, because we're losing it because of the technology. So if you can prove otherwise, you are going to have the competitive edge that no one else has, because people are not looking up, they're not paying attention, and their level of awareness is low. And what we want to do is amplify it, and that means taking care of ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you bring those conversations to the businesses, the associations, talking, the
Yeah.
presentations, is that what you focus on as well? Like you tell them, like this is the way it is, and it's not just all about, like you said, it's becoming aware as well.
Yep. Yeah, I share all of these tips that I'm sharing with you right now. And then, um, you know what? Some people will get it instantly, and some people maybe they're not ready to hear the message.
Yeah.
And you know the saying, right? Um, the teacher appears once,
Yeah, when the student is ready.
the student is ready.
Yeah.
So it could just be their first hearing or understanding of the importance of it. Um, but yeah, that's part of what I do. And then also coach help people guide, one-to-one individually on how to reframe their mindset, because it is a reframe and thinking about things, right? And thinking about things differently. And like guilt, which we know is a useless emotion. Like, how can we help you? How can I help you get over this? And a big saying that I have is it truth in your head or is it trash? So let's clear it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
The art of clarity.
The art of clarity, right?
Yes.
How can we
So,
get to what the issue is? Yeah.
so what's your favorite? Can I ask you that? Or like, I mean, your favorite as in, do you love the presentation? I know you probably love it all, but what is your favorite? Or the
Mm,
one-on-one?
that's that's an interesting question. I do love presentations. I do love connections. you know, when I'm in front of a room and I can sense and feel, right? We can't replicate in person like being in person. Like virtual is always great. But when I get the chills, LouAnne, when I've made a point and I've made a connection, that's earth shattering for me. Like I'm doing the work that I meant to do. So, and the one-on-one that has it's kind of like equal that's important too, because then I get to work with somebody and helping them just reframe how they feel, because that's valuable as well. So what's my favorite? That is so hard. I've been speaking the longest, right? I've been doing that since my initial days in public accounting, and then I did it the next job, and I did it the next job, and now it's like, creating my own content. So I think I would rank that as number one. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you connect with an audience too.
What's
So,
better?
yeah. So how do you prepare for something like that? Because I'm sure you've spoken to big audiences, small
Yeah.
audiences. So tell me, how do you prepare yourself? Because it's got to be a little stressful.
So, rehearsals. So it is about preparation. That's an outstanding question, because people are like, I'd rather jump off a bridge than do a speaking engagement. And it's all a matter of preparation and knowing my script and rehearsing hour after hour and just really feeling the content, right? So that's how I prepare. Right before a presentation, there are exercises like vocal and otherwise that help me come into present moment. Like right before we sat down, I did some vocal exercises, some energetic moves that helped me prepare, even just sitting here with you. So there are some things that I do right before, but leading up to that, knowing that I have an engagement, it really is important to know what I'm talking about and how I'm going to present it and the emotion that I want the audience to feel. It's interesting because a lot of people just haven't thought about all that goes into a delivery. And it's just because they haven't thought about it. But I can share that, the more time you put into it, the more comfortable you are with offering the content that you have and that you've created. That's what's helped me tremendously. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Now, they say that you'll either connect with someone, like with a speaker, or you will turn off to the speaker, turn it
Mm,
off within 10 seconds. So, how do you address that?
wow. Awareness. Knowing if I've turned them off, I need to switch something on, don't I?
And how do you do
Right?
that?
Yeah. Change my pitch, maybe step off the stage, get closer, give them more time to respond. Like if I ask a question, engage, make it more interactive. That would be my sense. Because if it's turned off, well, then I haven't done my homework either. It's really important to know your audience and making that connection immediately. So if you can do that, that's important. One of the things that I share, in the image part is it only takes 7 seconds to make your first impression. So I say it's less than 10. I say that it's 7. So if I've done a bad job, then I haven't done my homework as a presenter, speaker, performer to know who I'm presenting to. So that's step number one.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so important, I'm sure.
Yep. For
Yeah.
sure.
So when somebody hires you, I'm sure that that's the first question. Well, you even asked me that question. You said at the very beginning, so what is the tone of the show? What does the audience like? Do you do it this way or do you do it this way? And I'm really finding that when I first started 3 years ago, this podcast, I was really new. I didn't know anything. And I
Right.
would get, a list of questions and I would send them to the person or they would send me this list of questions and I was so nervous that I would miss something and
Hmm.
then after doing it for a while, I just felt that it was so scripted. It was like me like standing there with a piece of paper saying, "Okay, so tell me what you think." You know what I mean? And
Sure.
so I felt disconnected. So with my guests, so now I like to have fun and just have a conversation
Hmm.
and I think that people gravitate to those types of conversations a little more than, somebody who has a list of questions and they're
Yeah.
just going through the motions.
Because it's authentic. It's all about authenticity, right? You're being
And
yourself. I get to be myself, and that's what people want.
and I think that it's important to just go with the flow of the conversation. It just makes it that much more interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and how people deal with, like you yourself, how you deal with something that comes up that you weren't expecting, or
Right.
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
that's really great. Now, you said
Mm-hmm.
that you did a podcast for a while.
I do. It's still out there. Like I guess it's still in the podcast sphere. It's called Office Flip-Flops, and a lot of it is taught. And why flip-flops? It's like a double entendre. It's not about the shoes. It's about flip-flops that happen in the office. Initially, like the first number of episodes were about dressing appropriately and some important and difficult conversations that needed to to transpire, right? So I'll give you an example in a moment, and then more into like the leadership, and it went really into that towards the end. There's about 115 episodes, and
Oh,
it's still
wow.
out there on Apple and Spotify. You can still find it, and it's Office Flip Flop. So one of the conversations, LouAnne, which again drives me to the importance of dressing appropriately for work. There's someone that I met virtually, and she was the administrator of a school out on the West Coast. And she, one morning, she got a phone call that said, so and so is wearing a skirt that's too short. And this so and so happened to be her best friend who she got the job. But in their dress code, it was very specific that you cannot wear a skirt more than 2 inches above the knee. And when you think about it, when you're with little kids in grammar school, you're bending over, you're kneeling down, and little kids would be pointing, like they just eliminated. They didn't want any of the issues. So she was told it was 7 a.m. She had a half an hour before the kids got there and were dropped off by the buses. She needed to have this conversation. I'm like, well, how did you do it? Like, what did you do? What were the words that you used to have this conversation with your very good friend? She was, well, I thought about it. I called her in, and I was just very honest with her. And I said, I need to have a difficult conversation with you. And it's awkward for me because we're friends. Here's the dress code. And as you can see, we have a very strict policy that your skirts can only be 2 inches above the knee. And your skirt that you're wearing today violates the dress code, and I'm going to need you to go home and get changed. Well, the woman broke down crying because I guess there was a lot going on in her life. She didn't have what she needed to wear that day, and she apologized. She went home, she got changed, and that was it. But here's the thing, had she not had that conversation, yeah, there could have been an altercation later in the day. And that gives other people permission to say, oh, well, she's wearing that. I can wear that. Right. So it just messes up morale, LouAnne. So that's one of my conversations that I had, is understanding how important it is to show up. And especially if there's a dress code, that you pay attention to it. And again, showing up as your professional self. They are paying you to provide a service. And in gratitude for that, you're dressing up for
That's perfect. That's a great
it.
example.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk for a second about the mindset about this? What I mean by that is how you present yourself, or how you feel yourself when you are dressed professionally.
Mm. Me, as in Francesca, how I feel when I'm dressed, or
Or
just in,
anyone, like, like how I would feel about myself when I'm just, even just sitting here doing the podcast, just how it
yeah,
changes everything in
yeah,
your brain,
yeah, it
you know.
does. I have one word if I were to sum it up: confidence. You have the confidence that you've shown up as you should to do the job that you were meant to do today. So it has a lot to do, it is that feeling, right? We can't script that. And ultimately, when you know that you've put on those right pieces that fit and that are comfortable, that you've made that good choice today, You have the confidence to do an even better job. So then that leads to productivity, right? That builds teams and the work that you get to do with teams and other people. So one positive thing leads to the next. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember, when I worked for the government, there would be girls that work in an office where they don't see anybody. And it got to the point where they were allowed to dress down, but then the needle just tipped too far the other way. And then it was, like you said, office and flip-flops.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
cut off shorts and, like halter tops and come on.
Oh, that's bad. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if if you don't have clear statements, um, those things happen. And then ultimately, then you're a distraction. And that's ultimately how I guide young women and young men. You don't want to be distraction. You're a distraction to your sex and the opposite sex. People are going to notice. Everyone is going to notice. And you don't want to be distraction, because then what happens? Then the productivity goes down because they're talking about you like that person. And then they start thinking about like what they think they can get away with the next day. So, yeah, you don't want to be a distraction. And ultimately, and you have to be so careful with dress codes. I have an example of where in my last corporate position, we had very clear, this was before denim was allowed in the office. So we are like, no denim shirts, no denim on Fridays, unless we say jean Fridays. This is going back a bit. So we were clear about no shirts, no pants. And this woman shows up in a denim skirt. Now, it wasn't short and it wasn't in the policy, but ultimately we had a no denim policy. For example, she's like, well, it doesn't say I can't wear a skirt. And I'm like, I know that. And I apologize for that. However, can you please, like, you don't have to go home and get changed. It's not offensive, but please don't wear that shirt, or pardon, that skirt anymore, or whatever. Like, again, tough conversations, but we need to really have them as soon as possible, like the day of, and have a decent amount of clarity in the dress codes and understanding that it is about enforcement. And as leaders, it goes, from the top down. So be a role model within that dress code policy as well. Embrace it. If you're going to enforce it, I would say you have to embrace it. Yeah.
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 So important. Now, I know probably my listeners are thinking, well, gee, what does a dress code got to do with mindset? So that's where I'd like to offer, and you as well, I'm sure you can answer to this. I'd like to offer the fact of how people treat you. So even if it's just at home and you're just at home, working on your computer, whatever, just feeling good in dressing up, because nowadays, now with the pandemic and everything that happened, people didn't have the opportunity to go out. So, like you said, the dress code kind of went out the window and people started just being comfortable. And I know that that's a good thing, but there's a way to be comfortable and in, like I'm comfortable in what I'm wearing right now.
Yep. Me
And
too.
it's very
Yep.
professional. And I don't know, I just feel different. I just feel, and I feel that, like I said, I was teaching, to college kids, and I feel that the classroom, I was able to handle a classroom better because they saw me in that suit, because I always wore a suit to the classroom. And, my hair was always done, and, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
I 100%. And I think I'm thinking of another example of fairly recently, I delivered this image workshop to a high school leadership. And when you're a young and new teacher, you have to really take specific steps to dress differently than the students, because they need to look up to you, because there's very little difference in age. And how do you do that with a jacket? But like you said, paying attention that you're not wearing what they're wearing, because are they going to look at you as a teacher or a friend? Right. So it's really separating yourself and your role. Not to say that you're better, but you want you want to command respect in the classroom, right? And that's one way of doing it. So there's an onboarding process at this particular school system that speaks to this. As a young teacher, we need you to dress differently, and here's our dress code, because if not, you're going to have the issues in the classroom, and that's a whole different conversation. So that like I said, that's a very specific example that I think ties in the importance of setting yourself apart, especially as a leader. I always say layers, lapels, jackets add authority, collars, like you have like a cardigan, you've added a layer, like specific steps to say, okay, I'm your leader and I'm here to support you. Really, that's all that it means. Not that I'm better than you. I am here to support you. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I can tell you about another time as well. I had a business partner, and the two of us put on a um, fitness convention. It was just a mini fitness convention. And the two of us were, I was the fitness person, he was the business person. And so I wore fitness clothes during this whole thing, and he wore a suit. And
Wow.
I was thinking, okay, well, that's not really like for a fitness convention. But what was interesting was how everybody saw him, even though he wasn't the fitness person, but everybody saw him and went to him
There
as
you
the
go.
authority. And I couldn't figure that out. I was like, why are they all going to him? And it was actually one of the presenters in this fitness convention who said to me, he's dressed in a suit.
There you go. That's it right there.
So
That's
I
the perfect
lowered
example.
myself to being just like everybody else who was a
Right.
fitness presenter, and he was the business professor, or I'm sorry, presenter. So
Presenter. Yep.
yeah, and that always stuck with me. So I
Yeah.
think that was my pivoting moment or my turning point, where from that point on I
Yep.
always dressed for success
There
in
you
my
go.
mind. It's interesting how that all
Yep.
works. So now you said that you took some classes for presenting. So was it for coaching or just, some
Oh, as
class?
a professional speaker, it wasn't a class, it was like an 8-month long program. So it was very involved and from a time and energy perspective, completely changed my life. And um yeah, it was a program, not like class here and there. It was a very extensive, detailed program that I loved. Yeah.
And what did you find? What was the main reason why you had decided to do this?
Well, because I've been a speaker my entire career and I wanted to up level my performance. So to do more of it, because you asked moments ago, like, what's your favorite? So I knew that that was my favorite. So I wanted to be better. So that's it right there. Yeah, that I wanted to up level what I was doing.
So that's very important, isn't it? To anybody
Sure.
who owns a business.
Anybody, because everything takes practice. Everything takes practice. Our jobs take practice, and it's just taking an interest in that, um, and making it a part of, like, just, see where you're led. And if it feels good, if it's positive, which is what we're talking about, then that's where you should go. And I firmly believe that one step leads to the next, right? I started out here, then I did a little bit of that, and then put these two pieces together, and now, right? So it's just allowing these experiences to link together so that you can become your best self.
And that's so important. And I mean, let's face it, you were in school for how many years to become a CPA?
Right. Well, undergrad college, right? So that was a 4-year degree. And then studying for the exam, which was hard. I remember the nightmares that I would have, but, studying for that at the time, it was, when I took it, there were no calculators. So it was always long math. It was handwritten. It wasn't computerized at the time. So no calculators, handwritten. It was like 3 days long. So imagine the hours and like saying no to every like social engagement so I can prepare this part of my life. Yeah. So
But the point I'm
it,
making is that you did that and you went to school. And then when you went into this new profession, you still, went back and learned and learned. And I really,
that's right. Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah. I'm a
that is
lifelong
one
learner.
thing. Yes. Yes. Everybody, it's interesting. Everybody who I talk to, everybody on my podcast, that's one of the things that they all say is just never stop learning, never, go
That's
to
right.
the next thing. And even if it doesn't sit right with you, go to it, you know, learn it. And then if you don't like it, move on. It's okay.
Right.
Learn something else. So,
That's
yeah. And you never stop learning. People who don't
yeah.
like school are probably cringing right now saying, oh, I don't want to go to school for the
Well,
rest of my life, but
then find something that you do like, right? Um, and stick with that, but keeping an open mind about what you like. And maybe you like music better than math. That's okay. Then learn an instrument or sing or take singing lessons. And, there's so many different steps. And when I go back to see the kids in my alma mater, I'm like, never stop learning. And by the way, a lot of it is free. And by the way, I didn't have Google when I was in your seat, right? I didn't have all of these free opportunities and podcasts and search engines, and now we have our new brain, AI. Like there's so many ways, there's endless ways, infinite amount of ways that we can get interested in something and just study that.
one of the things that I do in my presentation or in my course is I walk them through, and that's the reinvention course, the clarity, finding clarity in 90 minutes. And that's walk them through what brings them joy because
Mhm.
people have lost that. It's gone. You got to bring
Well,
them back.
yeah, it's been buried because I think, at first you go to college because you want a good job and to make money. But ultimately, that shifts into how can you be of service? And that's when you find what's joyful to you. So it takes time, it takes experience, and they've lost it because there's not enough people talking about that you can get back there. And it takes time, right? It's not what everybody's doing, right?
Yeah, that's so true. So what's next for
Mhm.
you? What's on your list of things to do?
Yeah, get on bigger stages, engage in bigger audiences. Um, I've done the international route virtually and, get on a in-person IRL in real life international stage. So just really continuing my work on a broader span, like traveling to these great places and engaging with people.
Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be exciting? Wow. I'm just
Yeah.
breaking into that, but that is an area that I'd like to look into as well. I really want to do a
Mhm.
TEDx, and yeah, I think that would be
Yeah.
a new thing that I'd like to try. I've done
Yeah.
virtual stages, and I really enjoy
Right.
it.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's on my vision board to be in
There
a
you go. I
to
feel
be
like
on
you're
a.
looking at it when you looked up. Yep. And
Yep,
it
it's
is.
on my vision board.
So, and then all that we have to do is act as if it's already here, right? And you see it. Like your vision board is just an exercise in visualizing exactly what you want. So it's just thinking about it, like seeing yourself on the red dot, LouAnne, right? Seeing yourself on the red dot with the lights, with people in front of you, and you're there. You just have to show up.
And know that my message is going to be one that they want to hear.
Right, that it's viral. And not just here once, over and over and over again, right? It's
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
So you have to come up with that perfect message that resonates with yourself and with your potential audience, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's making that connection, right? And just doing it a little differently because that's what TED, you know, that's what they want thought leaders, right? So, and there are what, thousands upon thousands of messages out there, but likely when it's formatted in your life experience, that's how you get the edge.
Yeah, because everybody wants to hear about how you did it your way.
Right. Exactly. Which gives them the confidence to do it their way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, this conversation has been so great. Thanks so much
Awesome.
for coming
Thank
out.
you so much. Yeah.
Well, before I go, now, I don't know if you've checked out any of my Mindset Playground, but I always ask my guests
Okay.
for three golden nuggets that you'd like to leave
Mm.
the audience.
Never stop learning. Always present your best self and find things every day that make you happy every single day and live that.
Wow, those are some great nuggets.
Thank you. Yep.
And
Yep.
I know that somebody or many people who listen to this
Good.
are going to love our conversation.
I hope so. I hope it resonates with some people and that um, there's a lot of strong messages in there. It's just really coming back to um, that feeling, like you've mentioned it a few times during our talk today, LouAnne, and it's just ultimately having that feeling that you're doing good in the world. You can't beat that. That's what we're here to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you're so good at it. So thank you
Oh,
so
thank you.
much for
Thank you so
stopping
much.
by. And I really appreciate you. I appreciate that you've spent time with me on the playground. And I look forward to playing again one day.
All right. Well, thank you, LouAnne. You're a sweetheart. I appreciate your time and having me on the show today.
And thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.